Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. We know it's the end of the day, and some of you are staying in the office to be with us, so we really appreciate that. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Rami Bayour, and I'm the Conference Director with IIR Middle East, as well as the Curator for the HR Observer. For those of you who are joining us for the first time this evening, let me just briefly introduce the HR Observer to you. It's an initiative that we created here at IIR Middle East to become an overarching platform for the HR community to exchange insights and issues on things that are relevant and matter to the community here in the Middle East. It features an online blog, a few social media feeds, as well as online webinars, and very soon some offline networking functions as well. If you'd like to stay up to date with new articles, some of the upcoming webinars, as well as the new events we're launching, please sign up for our free newsletter that you can find at www.thehrobserver.com. Before we start the session, I'd like to run through a few housekeeping notes to ensure that your webinar experience this evening is both enriching and enjoyable. First of all, please make sure that if you would like to ask any questions, to use the questions box that you see in your webinar application. You can ask questions throughout the session. You don't need to wait till the end. However, our presenter will answer as many questions as he can at the end of the session. Now, if there are any unanswered questions that will remain at the end, we will make sure that we put up answers for them onto our blog very shortly after the webinar. The webinar today is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to you to view at a later stage. We will send you an email with a link for you to be able to view the webinar, as well as the slides that will be used throughout the session today. Lastly, please make sure that you take the time to complete our post-webinar survey that will pop up at the end of the session. It will have a few questions that will just evaluate how you thought the webinar was this evening. Now, I know you're not here to listen to me talk, so let me quickly introduce you to today's presenter so we can get started. Terence Mauri is a highly regarded CEO, coach, and leader speaker around the world. He's a former director of the advertising giant Saatchi Saatchi. His inspirational style is valued by many organizations, large and small, including Google, Financial Times, and Mubadala, to name a few. And now, without further ado, I hand over the virtual stage to Terence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rami. It's wonderful to be back in the UAE. I find this country to be full of warmth, hospitality, generosity, and I love the vision as well. Yesterday I was in LA, so it's great to be back here. Over the next 60 minutes, I want to take you through a really energizing and inspirational session. I really believe that today's leadership challenges cannot be solved by yesterday's thinking. Take a few moments to ponder this question. If you could pick one leader from history to be on the board of your company, who would it be and why? Take a few moments to think about that question. It's likely that that individual was what I call a future-proof leader. Over the next 60 minutes, I'd like to really clarify and take you through a journey on what a future leader is and how you can be one. So let's have a look at the specific outcomes of the session first. We've only got 60 minutes, so I've created a really structured and focused session. We'll be looking at really what is future-proof leadership and how can you turn it into everyday actions within your own role. Understand the need for future-proof leadership. We're in a world of volatility, uncertainty. The need for future-proof leadership has never been more pivotal. As part of this, I'll present you with 5 rules, 5 hats which you can wear to really help you achieve future-proof leadership immediately. Finally, most importantly, I'd like to make this session actionable and practical and really focused on giving you solutions to your problems, new solutions to old problems, and solutions to new problems as well. So let's get some context first of all. I really think context is king. Over the last 6 months, I've been conducting research around the world to really understand and define future-proof leadership. Leaders must really thrive and survive in a world of volatility and change. Now, this is the only constant now. And one of the key characteristics of a future-proof leader is to role model that change. Take a few moments to have a look at our first page on the introduction. So a question for you to think about. How are you responding to a competitive and economic environment unlike anything that has come before? Not just change, but the speed of change has meant that we need a new generation of leaders. What I've conducted is detailed face-to-face interviews with over 100 managers and leaders around the world. These conversations offer valuable insight into their agendas, actions, and will give you high clarity on how to be a future-proof leader. So let's get a clear definition of what future-proof leadership is and isn't. First of all, it's really about leading from the front. It's about shaping and preparing for the future before it happens. This requires a prevention mindset, really the ability to look ahead and prepare before the events happen. Not easy to do in a world where we're accelerating all the time. So future-proof leaders are comfortable with ambiguity. They experiment and create new business models. Great examples of this, I think, Twitter, Amazon, Emirates, and let's not forget Apple, what I think is one of the world's largest startups. Future-proof leaders also invite disruptive innovation. They encourage others to drop outdated approaches and take balanced risks. A great resource here to check out is the businessmodelgeneration.com. This is headed up by Professor Alexander Osterwalder and is a recommended resource from this webinar. Finally, I think future-proof leaders are open-minded. They have a passionate curiosity. They embrace change. They role model change. They're pioneers of change. They're open to different communication styles. And they are chief talent operating officers. They really want to drive what I call ROI, not return on investment, but return on intelligence. Okay, so we've established and defined clearly what future-proof leadership is. It's really about shaping and preparing your leadership for the future before it happens. Let's now look at some of the forces and trends that have built a case for future-proof leadership. I'd like to refer to a seminal study, the Future of Work study by Professor Linda Grattan at London Business School. In this study, she's identified many trends which are pointing towards the requirement for a stronger, more muscular approach to leadership. Let's focus on 3. First of all, well, I think I can share a short story with you straight away to highlight globalization. Over the last 5 days, I've been from London to LA to Las Vegas, back to London, and now I'm in Dubai. If that's not globalization, I really don't know what is. So convergence, more competition, disruption of business models. Globalization is a constant reality now, and we need to stay ahead of the curve as future-proof leaders. I think what this means to you is to really develop that passionate curiosity about your competition, even your non-competition. Look at trends that are affecting your business model, trends which can be threats, trends which can be opportunities. A future-proof leader has an eye on the future. Okay, so that's globalization. Number 2, another big trend highlighted by Professor Linda Grattan is technology. And we can see that all the way around us. Only recently, Shazam was purchased by Facebook for $19 billion. And technology is really shifting the whole leadership platform. Some examples of this: Cisco, SAP, Tata Motors. These are all in the vanguard in terms of building high-performing virtual teams that cross boundaries and cultures. I'm also working with many leaders now that are using social platforms, social media, Twitter, to really create communities with their teams above and beyond face-to-face. I think another really fascinating lens to put on this is the neuroscience of leadership. A great resource to refer to here is Dr. David Rogg, who's really looking at how we need to understand the workings of the brain in order to be future-proof leaders. Take a few moments to take stock. The first two trends that we've spoken about are globalization and technology. Here's a potential statistic. By 2025, over 5 billion of us will be connected to a mobile device and cloud. It will be less about skills in the future and more about personal mastery. The final trend I'd like to speak about in this short seminar is what I call Generation Z. And this comes after millennials. For this particular trend, I can refer to my nephew. He's 8 years old, and I call him my CTO. That's the Child Technology Officer. He's the person that everybody else in the house depends on. He's a master and can do things with technology which nobody else can. What this means as a future-proof leader is that you need to stay ahead of the learning curve. You need to be agile, you need to be flexible, and you need to have a lifelong commitment to learning. I would go as far to say that future-proof leaders are lifelong learners. So take stock. Why future-proof leadership? Well, the world today is changing. Yesterday's thinking will not solve today's problems. As future-proof leaders, we need to insulate ourselves against these changes. Take a few moments to reflect upon that. And as we move to the next slide, I'd like to clarify what future-proof leaders actually do. We can focus on 5 specific rules, and these rules give you clarity of direction and real purpose. The rules are, at the top, strategist. So I think this one's really about shaping the future. A future-proof leader looks ahead as well as looks behind. Second rule is what I call executor. Now, this isn't about, may not be what you think. This is really about making things happen. It's having what I call a high, say, do mindset, really translating intention into meaningful actions. Those are the first two. The third rule of a future-proof leader is you've got to be a talent manager. I came across a leader recently who really described eloquently that he thought a CEO was not a chief executive officer. A CEO was a chief enabling officer. I thought this was a really good take on how to get the best return on investment from your talent. So thirdly, a future-proof leader really retains and grows and develops and protects their talent. Number 4, what about the next generation? A future-proof leader looks ahead and builds the next generation of talent as well. This means that you really have to look at your talent management strategies, making sure that you're attracting and retaining only the highest talent. Finally, arguably most importantly, you've got to invest in yourself. This is about credibility, it's about self-management, it's about personal leadership. I call this personal proficiency, and it's really about understanding your relative strengths and capabilities and focusing on addressing your development gaps as well. So to sum up, these are really 5 must-have capabilities of a future-proof leader. You can use this to benchmark yourselves. You can use this as a roadmap. You can use this as a compass to give you clarity of direction. And I think most importantly, it's a useful framework for you to understand and apply the behaviors of a future-proof leader. What we're going to do now is really break this down into more detail, looking at each capability in more detail. I'll be giving you an opportunity to evaluate yourselves against each of these must-have capabilities. So a few moments to pause and think, and let's go to the next slide. So in the previous slide, I spoke about 5 must-have future-proof leadership capabilities. Let's start by looking at the first one, which is what I call strategist. This is really about having a point of view about the future, making sure that you are curious about where your company and where you're heading and why. And as the late Steve Jobs used to say, you're able to connect the dots and translate that into meaningful action. So what does it mean to be a strategist, first of all? Well, there are 4 specific capabilities that I'd like you to reflect and evaluate. Number 1, as a future-proof leader, you have a distinct point of view about the future, whether that's conservative or optimistic or bullish. You're able to articulate that with energy and passion. Number 2, you and your organization, really customer centricity is the DNA of your business model. Everything you do starts with the customer. And I call this creating a customer-centric view of strategy. Strategy should be an everyday conversation. It should just not be held in the ivory tower of the board. But everybody should be able to articulate and really embody that strategy hour by hour. Number 3, I engage my organization in developing the strategy. What I mean by this is that strategy is a team sport. It's inclusive, it should be part of a community, and everybody should have an emotional and cognitive state in putting that strategy into action. Finally, I create a strategic traction in my organization. What this really means is that you translate strategy into action and you keep the momentum going and you talk about sustaining the strategy through to completion. A great example which I'd like to refer to here is Shell. Shell have an award-winning team called the Shell Scenarios team, headed up by Dr. Jeremy Bentham. And their mandate is really to look ahead and develop different points of view about the future which may affect positively or negatively the Shell business model. A question for you to ponder is, what are you doing now? What is your organization doing now to prepare for the future? Do you have an articulated point of view? Have you evaluated different scenarios, both favorable and unfavorable, which may affect your business model? Are you ready? Is really the key fundamental question for you to consider. What I'd like you to do then is a self-reflection exercise. There's no doubt that future-proof leaders look out, but they also look in. They have different levels of focus, so inner focus, outer focus, and other focus. I'd like you to evaluate yourself on each of the strategist statements. So, to confirm, there are 4 statements on this slide. Starting at the top, I have a point of view about the future. Take a few moments to score yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being the lowest score, 10 being the highest. So where would you score yourself today in terms of your competency level at this particular behavior? Apply the same methodology to the next 3 statements. And for this exercise, I'll give you 30 seconds. It's a maximum score of 40, so no one should be scoring more than 40. Of course, if you're a pathological optimist, you might score yourself higher. If you're a pessimist, you might score yourself lower. But the purpose of this exercise is really to benchmark and get a sense of gaps and relative strengths. My recommendation would be to share this tool with your colleagues, with your peers, to get a more objective analysis of what the scores are for the strategist capability. So to sum up, strategist is the first rule of being a future-proof leader. And what I'd like you to do now is move to the next slide, which is looking at the second rule of future-proof leadership, which is really an execution mindset. It's putting intention into action. A great example of this is McLaren. And McLaren, the Formula One high-performance business, they are pathological about execution. Ron Dennis is the chairman, and he is obsessed about excellence. There's no doubt about that. He's got 2 PAs. And not just excellence, but the speed to putting things into action as well. Let's look at what it takes to cultivate a strong execution mindset in more detail. So again, same formula as the previous slide. Great executors, first of all, they make change happen. At some stage, they really translate intention, communication into a set of a series of meaningful actions. So it's about making change happen. Number 2, they follow a decision protocol. They're strong at decision influencing, and the decision protocol is really the modus operandi of the organization. It's how things get done. It's the culture. I came across an interesting comment a few days ago with one client who said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I'd have to agree with that. Culture, great culture, is a consequence of high performance and great strategy as well. Number 3, I ensure accountability. This means that as a future-proof leader, you are accountable for your actions and you hold other people to account as well. Number 4, I build teams. A future-proof leader is not a silo, so it's an individual who is really focused on building a strong community, somebody who can excite exceptional performance through their leadership every day. And as part of that, it's really about building a team, not just a group of individuals, but a team. Finally, and this is for the execution capability, I ensure technical proficiency. What this means is high levels of standards of quality and technical expertise to really ensure that you have the right capabilities, the right competence to put the intentions into action. Like the previous slide, I'd like to give you 30 seconds to really pinpoint and measure your current capabilities on each of these proficiencies. So again, starting with the first one, I make change happen. I'd like you to give yourself a score between 1 and 10 and follow through for the remaining 4 capabilities. The scores could be high, they could be low. This is really about getting a sense of current reality or current state so that you're then able to put some action plans into place to close those gaps over the next couple of quarters. So we've completed the first 2 rules of future-proof leadership. Number 1, strategist, making things happen and shaping the future, and number 2, the execution mindset, which is really about action. Let's now go to the third capability. So let's move to the next slide. This is talent manager, and there's some great examples of talent management around the world. I think here I'd like to refer to the Great Place to Work Institute. They publish and track organizations around the world. For 2014 in UAE, the top companies, Great Place to Work companies, were DHL, Microsoft Gulf, Omnicom, Ericsson, and the one. There's no doubt that these companies leave clues as to why they are voted great place to work organizations. So what does it mean to be a talent manager? Because this is an essential part of being a future-proof leader. Number one, they are consummate communicators. They communicate up, down, inside, outside. They really seek high alignment with all of their stakeholders, and they have great clarity of expression. So communication, I communicate effectively, is the first capability of a talent manager. Number two, I create aligned direction. This means focus. It means a common shared focus on the future. This doesn't happen by accident. It requires continuous communication using many different strategies, and this is not easy working in an open plan office, for example. So number two, I create aligned direction. Number three, I strengthen competency in my organization. It's important to really identify the team strengths, the organizational strengths, and also the gaps, and make sure that you've got strategies in place to address those. Examples include coaching, mentoring, and really ensuring this outside-in approach. So I'd suggest invite your savviest contacts and really get that outside-in approach. Number four, I resource to cope with demands. As a future-proof leader, you have to deal with the reality of lack of resources and many constraints. Could be time, could be people, could be talent. And so a future-proof leader is somebody who's able to really play to their strengths and also maximize their resources despite constraints. Finally, well, as I've mentioned before, you are a Chief Enabling Officer. Your role is to enable others to achieve excellence. And this means maximum engagement. It means a positive, optimistic, forward-thinking environment. It's really the DNA of the culture. And I truly believe that as a future-proof leader, you're making credits or debits in your culture every day. Your future-proof actions are symbolic. What you are seen to do or say, or what you're not seen to do or say, is symbolic and will affect the culture and the environment. Take stock. Take a few moments to, again, score yourself against each of these capabilities on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest score, fully confident, fully competent, 1 being the lowest. Netflix is a great example of talent management. There they have what I call 5 talent tenets. They are, first of all, hire, reward, and tolerate only the best. Number 2, tell the truth about what's relevant. Number 3, managers own the job of creating great teams. Number 4, leaders own the job of creating the culture. And number 5, good talent is really about maximizing strengths and really having the mindset of a startup, irrespective of how big your organization is. So, to sum up, we've looked at the first 3 capabilities of a future-proof leader. I'd now like to move you to the final 2 capabilities of this self-analysis exercise. Future-proof leaders look within themselves, deep reflection. And this isn't easy when we're moving so fast. So let's go to the next slide. The 4th capability of a future-proof leader is human capital development. This is really about developing the next generation of talent, preparing and shaping future talent for your organization, so succession planning, for example. Here we have 5 specific capabilities to look at in more detail. Number one, as a future-proof leader, I map my workforce. This means that you have individual development plans and that you really seek to identify and retain and attract individuals who are highly aligned to the vision and direction of your business. And number two, I link the firm and the employee brand. There needs to be, clearly there's an external brand. The question here is, what is the internal brand of your organization? And every leader will be putting credits or debits in that leadership brand every day. Number three, you help people to manage their careers. They have to take responsibility for this, but one of your roles is to be a great coach. This was highlighted only recently at Google. They conducted a seminal piece of research called Project Oxygen. And in this research, they used their statistical skills and algorithms to look at over 10,000 observations of managers in action, both good and bad, and distilled this basically into a number of leadership qualities. The top three were coaching, empowering others, and expressing an interest in their careers. So, number three, I help people manage their careers, is a real fundamental future-proof leadership quality. Number four, I find and develop the next generation of talent. This means that you're looking outside of your organization to really pinpoint and identify great talent and ensure that you attract that talent above and beyond your competition. Finally, I encourage networks in my organization, and a good example here is B-Sky B, the broadcaster. They use cross-functional mentoring. So what they do within their organization is ensure that individuals from different departments collaborate. They have cross-functional mentors which change every quarter, and this really provides a strategic perspective on different parts of the business, but also helps build a deep operational focus as well. The point here is that you've got to decide, as a future-proof leader, you've got to decide what are the must-have actions and what are the nice-to-have. So, in summary, for human capital development, we have 5 capabilities. Again, starting from the top, take a few moments to score yourself against each of those 5. Great. So let's go to the 5th and final capability of a future-proof leader. This is about investing in yourself. It's really about a continuous commitment to lifelong learning. It's about achieving personal mastery. Malcolm Gladwell talks about 10,000 hours of practice to achieve this. For me, I'd like to distill this into a number of measurable actions. So let's have a look at the first one. I practice clear thinking. What this means is that you're able to think with clarity when under pressure. Not an easy feat to achieve with the plethora of information. For example, the psychologist Simon Herbert talks about a wealth of information. Really creates a poverty of attention. You may have been there today where you're constantly distracted, making it very difficult to either look ahead or look back. You're probably just dealing day to day, firefighting, on the back foot, reactive. Clear thinking is about taking control and taking a productive pause. This is a discipline, but the payoff is a better understanding of yourself and higher quality thinking, which will help you achieve your goals for yourself and for your organization. Number 2, as the Socratic phrase goes, I know myself, and future-proof leaders are very clear about where the strengths are and where the deficits are. So you know yourself, you understand your weaknesses and your impulses and really where you need to be stronger. Number 3, I tolerate stress. different types of stress. Some stress is good, some stress is bad. But take a few moments to think about this. 8 hours is only 480 minutes. And in that time, you're probably continually firefighting. If you're operating in a high stress mode all the time, your perspective narrows and it becomes more difficult to think strategically. You become automated and 3 things will happen: fight, flight, or freeze. So managing your stress is absolutely key to future-proofing yourself and your leadership. Number 4, I demonstrate learning agility. Agility is coming up more and more. Organizations and individuals need to build resilience. The Finnish term for this is sisu, and resilience and agility as well, and the ability to change and the speed of change. So learn new things. Make sure you have a learning plan in place. This could include identifying a mentor from outside of your business or inside of your business. It could be creating a plan where you're attending different events to really cultivate a point of view about your industry and your organization. Remember, passionate curiosity. Next one, I tend to character and integrity. Leadership is relational. We need those basic tenets of trust and respect and credibility and integrity in place. And so this happens every day through the actions and what we do and not do. Final 2, I take care of myself. This is really about making sure that you have some type of work-life balance. And as you'll know, and as I know, this is very, very difficult when, we fly for a living, we are continually switched on to technology. So it's important to strike that balance. And finally, energy. We need energy. You're like a catalyst as a future-proof leader. You need to enable your teams and enable yourself, and you need to energize and excite those around you. One of my favorite job titles, which I came across recently, was Director of Excitement. This is a real job title, Director of Excitement. And the mandate of this particular role was really to focus on energizing and inspiring and keeping the work and the job fresh for the people. So take a few moments to evaluate yourself against each of those capabilities for personal proficiency. So how did you do? Well, as I said, I recommend in terms of next steps undertaking this exercise with your peers because this will make it much more objective and useful. Let's turn to the next slide though and really complete a quick analysis. If you're, so identify your lowest scores for each section. Remember, there are 5 capabilities in total: strategist, executor, talent manager, human capital developer, and personal proficiency. What were your scores like? Probably a cross-section of scores with some gaps, with some strengths. I think scores of 7 or below require priority attention. And really what that means is creating some specific actions and plans to close those gaps and strengthen those scores. What this means in reality is as a future-proof leader, and you remember, future-proof leadership is about future-proofing yourself, preparing for the future before it happens. You need to adopt a continuous improvement mindset. And you really need to ensure that what you know tomorrow is new and different to what you knew yesterday and last year. So it's really a proactive, as late Steve Jobs spoke about, stay hungry, stay foolish. So what I'd like to propose now is that we're moving to the latter part of the webinar. Let's now look at action, positive, energizing action to really raise your scores and move in the right direction. What I've done for you for each capability is also give a must-have book to read this year, which will help you raise the scores. So, first of all, strategist, and we have 5 actions to think about to increase the scores. What I'd like you to do is really think about which of these actions could you commit to and put into action. So number 1, I've spoken about this passionate curiosity, looking at the world from different angles, different perspectives, making sure that you're creating new experiences for yourself and continually stepping out of your comfort zone. This could include traveling to different places, doing some charity work, but it's really about creating a rich personal narrative. Number 2, have a POV, a point of view. How strong is your point of view about your organization, your industry, where it's heading and why? This is a very important test which requires continuous attention. So develop and build up a really strong point of view. Number 3, future-proof leaders are super networkers. And I think there are different types of networks that you need to think about. There's your operational network, and that's really the job. That's where you spend most of your time. Another type of network is your family, your personal networks, and that's a great source of strength. But there's also the strategic network, perhaps people on your radar who you don't know yet, but you should know. Super networkers are proactive, and they seek to build connections, not just up and down the business, but across the business and outside the business as well. Professor Linda Grattan calls this the big ideas crowd. A future-proof leader needs a big ideas crowd as a source of inspiration and really new angles which can help you take your business and take yourself forward to the next level. Number 4, look from the outside in. Absolutely fundamental. It's easy for organizations to become myopic and insular, and we've seen many examples of that over the last 12 months. Kodak comes to mind. So embrace change, which is the 5th one, and as a future-proof leader, you have to model the change, role model the change, and be an agent of change. My recommended reading is Good Strategy, Bad Strategy by Richard Rumelt. This is a Financial Times bestseller, and this book will help you increase your strength for Capability 1, Strategist. Capability number 2 is really an execution mindset. So we have 5 actions: increasing your say-do ratio, planning more. So really planning is like taking vitamin C or going to the gym. Most of the time we just do. We do faster and faster with no time to stop and review and no time to plan. So number 2 is absolutely a must-have. Number 3, excuse me, we're just going to go back to a slide. So next slide. So we're on execution slide. Number 3, don't wait for perfection. Get started and then focus more on continuous iteration. Number 4, focus. Sometimes we need to focus on focus. I'd suggest 3 types of focus. Inner focus, so taking time to reflect and renew yourself. Fundamental for great leadership and future-proof leadership. Outer focus, so looking outside of your organization, looking ahead, over the hill. And other focus, which is really making sure that you're focusing on your relationships and making sure that you're building high trust, high respect connections. Finally, you've got to make it happen, and you've got to do it with a limited amount of time. 8 hours is just 480 minutes, so it's really about focusing on your results, not just being busy. Next slide. Talent manager. Well, actions here, be what I call an ex-leader. This means, ex-leader means really a leader who focuses on maximum job contribution and maximum job satisfaction. It's a leader who really leads from the front and role models those behaviors of excellence every day. Aim for ROI. I mentioned before that I call this return on intelligence. And the higher the return on intelligence that you're achieving from your team, the stronger the results will be. Now, if there was a formula for future-proof leadership, it might look like this. Future-proof leadership is direction, so giving your teams direction, plus alignment, making sure that different departments are aligned, times communication. And it's often the communication, the third part of this formula, which causes many projects and intentions to fail. Number 4, connecting those dots, really creating an inspiring, clear, vivid scenario of the future, which your people can buy into and commit energy and resources to. So you have to really paint those pictures every day of what that future looks like and why, and show your people the road to that. Finally, we shouldn't forget that it's important to enjoy what you do. With such a short amount of time on the planet, possibly around 1,000 months, this translates into 83.8 years of age. Not that I want to depress you here, but it's not long. So what you do with your time is absolutely key. It's quite a frightening statistic, isn't it? I can see you all with open eyes going, what, 1,000 months? We spend 300 months in bed. So the recommended reading for this is Drive, and this is by Dan Pink. I should say that the recommended reading from the previous side is a book called Focus, and that's by Daniel Gorman. Let's go to the final 2 slides for this particular part of the webinar. So, human capital developer. Again, let's look at the specific actions to move you into the right direction. Number 1, map the workforce. So really analyze and pinpoint, measure the strengths and capabilities of your teams relentlessly and hold them to account, and create development plans to help them grow. Create a brand. You are a brand individually as a leader, so ensure that you're really building a brand which inspires confidence and commitment. Again, relating back to Professor Linda Grattan, leadership is about networks, and a future-proof leadership is unrelenting in building a whole range of different networks. Number 4, be a mentor. I think be a mentor and find a mentor is a great way of growing and developing. Finally, delegating and empowering others. Some great examples, practical examples here include taking a productive pause, what I call a power hour. A power hour is where you, for example, delegate for an hour, or it could be you have a recognition hour. Or an FYI, for your information hour. The purpose of the power hours is really to focus and energize yourself and your teams. Recommended reading for this one, for human capital development, is a great book by Chester Elton. I've met Chester, and it's called All In. And in this book, he talks about getting people engaged and enabled and energized. And this starts with you. Finally, personal proficiency. This is really about investing in yourself, remember. Actions. Well, the first one is what I call understanding the 5 battles of the self. I think all the most important battles in life are those that we fight within ourselves. A book I recommend to really expand on this notion is by Professor Nigel Nicholson from London Business School. It's called The Eye of Leadership, Strategies for Seeing, Being and Doing. But essentially in his book he talks about 5 battles which we all have to reconcile and manage every day of our lives. Remember, it's just 1,000 months. So, number 1, the battle for truth. Number 2, the battle for identity. Number 3, the battle for purpose. Number 4, the battle for performance. And number 5, the battle for control. That could be controlling your impulses, for example. So number 1 is really about understanding yourself. Number 2 taking those productive pauses. Remember, stopping, looking ahead, looking behind, analyzing your decisions and decision-making patterns, looking for anomalies, ensuring that you are learning and growing inside. Really holding up a leadership mirror to yourself. A great way of achieving this is by taking on a mentor or a coach. Number 3, that focus, that clear, unequivocal focus on focus, and making sure that you're not being distracted. Future-proof leaders invest time and get a return on investment of their time. 4, I think big picture thinking and detail thinking. So ensuring that you are strengthening both sides of the brain, the cognitive and the imagination side. Finally, and I've said this, is make the most of your 1,000 months. Are you doing what you love? Because if you're not, you're probably not going to be happy. Your employees will notice this and they won't be happy either. So getting strong alignment between your strengths, your interests, your values and your purpose, I think is one of the key ingredients of a happy and abundant life. So, we're moving to the final part of this webinar now, and I hope you found it intellectually stimulating and useful. If there was a future-proof leadership process from start to finish, it might look something like this. So let's go to our future-proof leadership process slide. We've got 8 actions on here, and you can use this as a guide, like a set of guidelines and framework to really help you future-proof your own leadership today. So number 1, what do you want to future-proof? This is about getting clarity and beginning with the end in mind. Number 2, take an audit of your strengths, your gaps, and really your goals. Where do you want to be? How do you want to develop? Number 3, use the future-proof self-evaluation tool. We've been through it in detail this evening, and you can refer back to it to benchmark yourself and really track your progress. This is about targeting the gaps and measuring what matters. Number 4, build some action plans. Make sure that you cultivate that execution mindset. I think number 5 is key. Find a mentor. Find somebody who's inspiring, who's a source of wisdom, who gives you a fresh perspective, who asks you questions you might not ask yourself, who gets you to deliver beyond your own expectations. These are the benefits of a mentor. If you haven't got one yet, set it as a goal immediately. Number 6, grow those intelligence networks. The benefits of these networks are significant. They give you access to information, opportunity, new ideas, decision making. Likewise, the opposite is true as well. If your networks are very small, you are going to suffer or miss out. So it's important to invest and grow networks inside and outside of your organization. Number 7, become an expert. So building that personal mastery, which requires day-to-day continuous learning. So that's number 7. Number 8, finally, you've got to celebrate success, monitor what you're doing, take corrective action, and review to make sure that your promises have turned into reality. So this is your end-to-end future-proof leadership process, and I hope and I urge you to test it out, use a test approach, and you can share this with your teams, your colleagues as well. It could be used for personal development or team development. So where do we go from here? I started off by asking you the question, if you could choose one leader from history to be on your board, to be in your company, who would it be and why? And as I said, it's likely that that individual that you've chosen was probably a future-proof leader. He or she probably had an eye on the future, but also was very passionate and curious and play to their strengths every day. I also spoke about the fact that today's leadership challenges cannot be solved by yesterday's thinking. And so future-proof leadership is really about a new paradigm, a new chapter. I think really to leave you with some final thoughts, I would recommend that you really take time to analyze and reflect upon what you're doing and why you're doing it. So build on your past success, but also learn from it. I think never more before than now, we need to be great at dealing with the present. As Clay Johnson says, we need an information diet. We need to switch off sometimes. So deal with the present is absolutely key as well. I also think that you need to have the eye on the future. So future-proof leadership is about looking ahead. It's really about having that big picture thinking as well as the detail. Finally, it's about taking care of yourself, making sure that you are managing those 5 battles of the self every day. A recommended book here is Linchpin by Seth Godin. I also recommend a website called Lumosity, which is excellent for really building your agility as a future-proof leader. Some final resources to help you on your way, and these are my must-have recommendations for 2014. The first one is called Get Abstract, which is a really innovative idea. Its mission is to create 5-page executive summaries of business books. And so it's a great way of growing your cognitive abilities, your external knowledge of the landscape, your expertise quickly. GetAbstract.com. Number 2 is really a bit like TED.com. It's called WOBI. It stands for World of Business Ideas. And again, it contains lots of inspirational talks on leaders and leadership. Number 3 is hotspotsmovement.com, Linda Grattan's movement, which really looks at hotspots, opportunities to grow your leadership every day. Number 4 is headed up by Gary Hamel, another thought leader, and this is called managementexchange.com. And then number 5, which I think is an excellent tool, developed by a team of anthropologists, is called Culture GPS. And this can help you lead and communicate across different cultures. It can help avoid messages getting lost in translation. This only happened to me recently in Shanghai, where I asked a colleague how old his son was, and he said to me, 7:30. So, I hope you have enjoyed this 60-minute seminar. To conclude, future-proof leadership is really about shaping and building your leadership so that it's ready for the future. Are you ready? Thank you very much for your time.